just wanted to say a little bit about you before you begin. So everyone, as you know from the update, Sadie Hampshire is a cultural fire practitioner and traditionalist, and she's been raised in her culture all her life. And she's been practicing cultural fire for almost 2 years, which has led her to understand the complex native ecosystems and how native species thrive together. Fire has been used as medicine to treat the land for thousands of years, Sadie says, and it's vital to all of our future. As a member of the Tanku, Nisenan, and Telmeti Washoe nations, Sadie carries this medicine alongside her elders and other cultural fire practitioners on indigenous forest lands throughout Northern California. And she also is a fire keeper with Flicker. And Flicker is an acronym for Fire Leadership for Intertribal Conservation, Knowledge Keeping, Ecocultural Revitalization. Did I get that right, Sadie?
Yes, that was so good. Round of applause.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and round of applause for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know.
Oh yeah. Just to let you know, Sadie, folks who saw you at your presentation of the Klamath Undown are here in the audience, so feel their presence too. So
yay! Oh my gosh, thank you. Yay. So I can't see you, but it's so good to know that you're there. Okay, well, Homakani, Hinsenape, Siri Yapemi, Tanku Nishanan, Telmelti Washo Nani, Inusnan Wallace Humwak. So, hello, my name is Sadie, or my traditional name is Hinsenape, and I am Tanku Nishanan and Telmelti Washo, and I am from the Nisenan Wallace family. So, yeah, practically the bio that I gave Letitia is everything that is just so far about me. I am a cultural fire practitioner. I've been doing that for a little over 2 years now. I started when I was 18 and I'm 20 now, so I'm young. But yeah, ever since I've been doing this type of work, I've always just been felt really drawn and really connected to it. And it's just felt like something that I knew I wanted to do for all of my life and all of my time. So I'm also just very excited and very honored to be here and be able to present in front of you guys. And I'm so happy that even though if I wasn't able to make it because of weather, we needed this rain though. I'm so happy to be able to still be here and be able to present. And yeah, so I will get started on my presentation. Let me bring it up. Let me get it into present mode first off. I just finished it before I got on. Okay, sorry, I'm also trying to figure this out a little bit too. This is a new, I don't want to sound like whatever, but it's a new laptop, so I've been trying to figure it out, and I think I've almost got it. Yes, there we go. Okay. All right, yeah, perfect. Okay, so I will start sharing my screen. Oh. Letitia, do I maybe actually have to send the presentation over to you guys?
You should be able to present. We might have to, let's see if we can.
We should be able to have that because you were invited.
Okay, yay.
Speaker,
All right.
so it should be working. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Again. Now it is working.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect.
But take your time. We've got time.
Okay, thank you.
Don't worry.
You guys are so patient with me. I appreciate it. Okay,
this is a blessing. So thanks for giving us this blessing.
Of course, thank you so much. We will share a window. Oh no, wrong one. There we go. Okay, so. Yes, of course. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So yes, this is my presentation. Even though on the website it said preserving our native plants through fire, I still kept that as the title or one of the subtitles, I guess you could say. But we usually like to call it Wenham Saw, which means good fire, because what we're doing is not just normal fire, we're laying down good fire. So we like to say Wenham Saw. So I'm just going over the premise of essentially what is cultural fire, because we can talk about it and how amazing it is and whatnot, but a lot of people want to know like exactly what is cultural fire. And I have a few little bullet points and whatnot. I kind of made gave the other slides more of my attention. But so cultural fire and what it is. So indigenous peoples of all over have a special relationship with fire and have been using it to tend their lands ethically and cultivate necessities. Cultural fire is a low intensity fire that burns the underbrush of forests, clearing a way for animals, plants, and us to live. So meaning just like underbrush is just like the litter duff or normally just the stuff that you walk on when you're in the forest because it can get really dense. And cultural fire is used to tend the land by burning in certain areas for certain needs such as basketry material, ceremonial medicine, food abundance, and much more. All of our native species thrive off the use of cultural fire, and humans and animal rely on it for food cultivation, excuse me, and plants rely on fire to reproduce. Cultural fire is sacred and ceremonial and has been practiced for all of time. So before we just get a little into it, I love to just give like the history of cultural fire and all that and whatnot. So we already know fire has been around for all of time, and indigenous science proves through its relationship with the land and the history with cultural fire is a tumultuous past. So with settlers wanting to harness the sacredness of fire, but they didn't understand the dynamic that native peoples had already established, thus leading to the first wildfire and outlawing of cultural fire in 1850, with the government going as far as letting natives be legally shot for burning. Natives continued to burn anyways, but it wasn't until 2021 that a bill was passed, AB 642, recognizing our right to cultural burns, which is, it's not a law, it's just a bill that recognizes our right. Before then, if an indigenous person led a successful burn, there was the potential threat of them being charged with arson, an automatic felony. There have been many people arrested who, luckily, still continue to practice their tradition today and have paved the way for us to be able to do our job with a little more efficiency. Even after cultural burns were recognized, tribal nations still face many challenges, such as permits and legal loopholes before we're told we're allowed to burn. Many cultural fire crews have faced heartache with some government agencies giving any reason to not approve of a burn permit. And if anybody understands trying to get a burn permit, it's not fun, nor is it easy. And I've yet to do it myself, but just hearing the backstory and how just so much goes into it, and also waiting to burn, it's just so much. But also, I would like to start off, or quote unquote, start off with a little story, especially about fire's beginning. So I just feel as I can't leave out the most important part of fire, its story and how it came to us. So it's said that in the beginning, at first, we were without fire, and all of the animals one day came together and had seen fire in the west. The animals needed fire for winter, so they sent out Hummingbird to go retrieve the fire and share it. Hummingbird flew to the west and collected the fire, but as Hummingbird made their way back, they encountered Coyote. "What do you have, relative?" asked Coyote. "This is my food," said Hummingbird. "Let me have it," Coyote said. "I'm so hungry." "No, it's my regalia," Hummingbird responded. "Let me wear it," says Coyote, crowding Hummingbird. "This is fire," Hummingbird finally says. "Let me see it," Coyote impatiently states. Hummingbird responds, "You want it? Here, take it then." And Hummingbird threw down the fire. Coyote took the fire, but was greedy and did not know how to handle it, and he burned himself up. So, not too much of a warm, fuzzy story, but I mean, what can you get? If people are familiar, normally Coyote in indigenous lore or whatever, Coyote is known as a trickster. So he doesn't really think too much and he wants to just do whatever and blah, blah, blah. So he didn't really understand the what it takes to harness fire, and so he burned himself. So now I would like to touch on Indigenous stewardship and caring for the land and what essentially Indigenous stewardship looks like. Because, you know, I feel like a lot of people hear the word, but sometimes they don't directly understand what it means. So when settlers made contact in Turtle Island, which is now America, America is part of Turtle Island, it's been repeatedly referred that the land was a park-like setting because of Native people's use of fire and tending for the land. Indigenous people knew fire is a medicine for the land. With ancestral knowledge of plants' certain needs, Indigenous peoples tended sites with care and respect, forming a connection with the land, furthermore establishing a relationship with our culture. Indigenous stewardship is more than looking after the land. It's about spiritual healing and protecting community, preserving our way of sustainability, and only taking what we need while ensuring full potential for future generations to continue passing down the knowledge and traditions that have kept us alive and thriving for many years. This is where cultural fire falls under, as stewardship. Fire is taking care of the land with care and respect, preserving the knowledge and traditions passed down while still forming interconnectedness with the land like our ancestors used to. Fire protects our right to cultural heritage. We cannot steward our lands without the use of cultural fire. So I would also like to include Indigenous women on this as well, because they had a very big part in the role of cultural fire. And I like to say, you know, without us Indigenous women, of course, there wouldn't be cultural fire. But there's a lot that goes into it. So it's not just us Indigenous women, but we do play a very big role and part in it that I feel like definitely needs to be touched on a lot of the times. So Indigenous women play a vital role in cultural fire. Traditionally, it's the women who lead the burns, made the burn plans, and told the men where/how to burn, because we were the ones who knew exactly where all the medicine and basketry materials, food, and supplies were. So, such as like, you know, when we would go out and gather or something like that, we could remember where somewhere was, or we could remember that this is a certain place where this goes. So we would write something and we would have the men go out and we would tell them exactly how to burn it. We knew exactly how to burn the land and what the land needed. Usually women wouldn't do the burns traditionally, but that has since changed. Our women were highly respected for their part in cultural burns. Without the women, the burn wouldn't happen or go wrong. There was no part where our women were left out of the process. They attended/supervised the burns, scouted out the areas, returned to the sites to harvest or restore. We brought our babies with us as we knew the importance of the youth seeing their tradition. Indigenous women aren't only vital to burns, they were well respected throughout the tribes. They were teachers, healers, medicine women, war chiefs, negotiators, life givers, farmers, and gatherers. They kept the tribe running and flourishing because we knew without our women, there wouldn't be us. Women are the backbone to society and land back. We wouldn't have what we do without us. So, just needed to add that. So this is kind of just like the one little slide that barely touches on the whole topic of but I feel like as the whole thing, it, you know, flows very well into it. But the preservation of native plants with fire, Indigenous science, you know. So when we do our prescribed burns, the fire and fire's ash provides nutrients like no other to our plants. Providing our plants excuse me, providing our plants with these foods they desperately need works miracles, and the next year our harvest is abundant and flourishing, ensuring that we have food for the winter. We mix the dirt and ash together, aerating the soil and making it very nitrogen rich so that the plant's food penetrates deeper and spreads faster to where the nutrients is needed the most. Fire brings out the dormant native seed pods, and the ash essentially helps germinate the seeds, so from seed to sprout. Then whatever nutrients is left over is shared within the root system. Unlike invasive species whose roots only go about a couple of inches in the ground, native plant species share a root system and evenly distribute water and food to whoever needs it. Fire helps mitigate invasive species by removing density and bringing in sunlight and oxygen, taking out the heavy competition with native plants. So real quick, I would love to just touch on the invasive species versus native species root system. So invasive species, normally their root system, I wish I put a picture for this, but anyways, so invasive invasive plant species, their root systems really only go about like, I want to say like 3 to 6 inches in the dirt. So it's not very far, but they also don't do too much for erosion control. Whereas native plants, their roots can go about like 6 feet in the ground. And invasive species, of course, they're not where they're from. They're very thirsty and they're very, competitive for all the nutrients that are around. So they actually end up choking out all the other native species that are there, that are trying to also fight for survival or distribute the other nutrients to the other plants. But native plants, they share a root system. So all their roots underground, they hold hands. But they touch, and whenever they have water or food or anything like that, they send all the nutrients to each other through all the little root systems. It's almost kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like electricity or something being passed through cells, Hopefully someone gets what I'm saying. But so they share that root system, and all the nutrients and the food and the water gets shared throughout that system so that no other plant is taking more than it needs to, and they're not trying to fight for their survival rather than they're just there and living. Oh, so this is I've totally forgot that I wanted to show you some plants, but I am so glad I did. So this is one of my favorite plants of all time, and I'm just going to talk about her for a second because I think she deserves her own moment. So this is the Humboldt's lily, or some people call it the Humboldt's tiger lily, but they're not really, they're very similar, but they're, I guess one's a tiger lily and one's a lily, but when I say they're very similar, I mean they are way too similar. They look way too close. They're very, very close. But I think one of the similarities, one of the differences is that the Humboldt lily, I think its petals just curve back a little bit more and it's more of like a goldish orange, or it can go to a deep orange. But so the Humboldt tiger lily, well, the Humboldt lily is technically not a lily, but not a tiger lily, but they have a lot of similarities. And it's native to California, of course, but it's mostly found in the Sierra foothills, luckily, um, or the Sierra Nevada foothills, I should say. And it's in the South High Cascade Range, the Outer Sierra Coast Ranges, and Santa Monica Mountains as well. It can grow to be about 8 feet tall. So sometimes, sometimes the first one I saw, I was looking down at it, but sometimes you can also be looking up at it as well. But it favors chaparral and oak woodlands. Specifically, it'll grow under oaks and whatnot. You'll find it there because it's very nice and shaded and moisturized and all that. But it's also can be found near streams, and this is also one where fire germinates the seed pods as well. So very nice. And it blooms from May to July. And if you can see that little photo I have right there, I think I actually the one with the butterfly, I should be saying. I think I took that one from the California Native Plant Society. So props, credits to y'all. I got that from you guys. But if you can see, I'm pretty sure that's a swallowtail. I don't know exactly which one, but it's a swallowtail that's on that one. But Humboldt lilies are actually pollinated by the swallowtail. And they can also be pollinated by hummingbirds, but I think it's the swallowtail specifically prefers the Humboldt tiger lily. And so do hummingbirds as well. They really like to pollinate from the lily. And then the next one, the next flower I have, she is so cute. I, again, also think she deserves her own little moment because she's so beautiful and she's so dainty. So she's called the fairy lantern, and she is also native to California, the Central Coastal Hills, and Sierra Nevada foothills as well. And this is actually one that is very drought tolerant. So this is not really a flower that needs a lot of water, but it can go for a little bit without water and whatnot because it's specifically attracted to shaded hillsides and rocky slopes and whatnot, and it's so cute in person. I remember the first time I saw it, I didn't actually believe that I was looking at that because I was just like, it's so magical looking. But yeah, so the first time I saw this, I was actually walking over like on this like rock kind of rocky hillside to find a little spot near the river. And when I was walking back, I just turned and I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh. And I took a picture and I went and I showed my crew boss and I was so ready for him to tell me it was an invasive species. And he's just all like, oh, that's a fairy lantern. And I was like, is it native or not? And then I got the greatest news ever that it's a native species. So we're very happy about that. We love the fairy lantern. And the next one I would love to just highlight as well. We've already seen all these around as well, but it's the manzanita and madrone. And I feel like these have to be with each other because they're in kind of the same family as well, even though the madrone is a little different and whatnot. But they are both very fire resistant and do need fire to maintain itself. Otherwise, we have manzanita that's all over the place. But also, you can take manzanita wood and it burns really, really hot. And if you can get it to burn really hot, you can smelt iron with it. So that's another very cool thing as well. And manzanita, I'm pretty sure we all, most of us know this, but manzanita produces these tiny little red berries, and they're actually I think they're really good. Some people tell me that they're bitter and they're sour, but they need to give her a try. But they produce these tiny little red berries that you can eat or you can make a tea out of, and the tea is really good as well. But the manzanita and the madrone family, they're actually one of the few plants that's where its bark, how do I say this? Its bark sheds, like you can peel, like when you go to a manzanita, you can peel it back. You can do the same thing with the madrone. You can peel the back the bark. But when you peel back the bark and you touch it, it's cold. And actually, I really, really liked these. I really loved like working with manzanita and madrone, even though my crew, they absolutely hated it because it's just so like, the branches of manzanita, if you've seen just a huge cluster of manzanita, it's just all intertwined and it looks like a rat's nest. It's not fun. But I liked it though because when we were working with manzanita and madrone, it was pretty hot. So whenever I would get pretty overworked or getting hot, I would take a break or just slow down for a little bit and I'd peel back manzanita or sometimes madrone, but most of the time it was manzanita. But I'd peel back the manzanita and I'd just touch it and I'd sit there for a little bit and I'd stay and it would just eventually cool me down because it was very cool to the touch. And there's not many other plants that are like that. But I should also note that the madrone is actually a tree, whereas compared to manzanita is more like a bush or a shrub, you can have old growth manzanita that grows to be really, really tall. I've seen manzanita actually grow to be like a tree, but most of the time normally it's like a tall shrub, whereas madrone is actually a tree. But they're in the same family as each other because, they both have bark that you can peel back and it's very cold underneath. And yeah, they're really cool. They're really cool plants to have too. Um, so food sovereignty and fire, cultivating abundance. So maybe I didn't add enough slides, but that's okay. But so I just want to touch on the food sovereignty and fire because in my mind, I feel like to have food sovereignty, we have that, we need to be in with fire and we use fire and it's how we essentially just have it in a way, you know. But so Indigenous people knew how to produce the best kind of food and understood a sustainable way of managing their plants so that they wouldn't affect the balance of our novel ecosystem. As I've mentioned before, fire ash is amazing natural fertilizer for plants, but it also packs more nutrients to our food and more abundant. So when the colder months came, we could harvest enough food to be able to feed ourselves the whole season. Fire gives Native people assurance that we won't run out of food and control of how we want our food because as well, we can see what's been doing we can see what's been done and how it's been taken care of and it'll be good to eat. Even in a plot of land with not many plants once fire is laid and the land is taken care of, it'll begin to bring back the life that was once and is still there. So again, another one that I was wanting to add pictures to, but I'm not sure how to put my own photos onto here just yet, but also I'm soon to figuring that out. But I've actually seen this before where, me and my crew, we go out to a piece of land or just a plot somewhere that somebody wants us to work at, and they're kind of it's just there's kind of not much there. They kind of just want work done. Or specifically, there was this one place where we worked, and there it was known for having a lot of basketry materials, but you could really only see the invasive type of grass. And once we were able to kind of open up the land and take back some stuff and take back some invasive plants and prepare it to be able to have fire laid on the land. Once we were able to lay fire on the land and then come back and do mop up and clean it up and mix the ash back into the dirt and make sure that the land is taken care of. When we come back, I can see, when I say come back, it's more so like within a span of, like, I want to say 3 to 6 months, where some people think it's going to be like years and years and years and years. But actually, for me, with my experience, it's been just within a couple of months. But so within the 3 to 6 months of when we burned and when we came back, the basketry material was actually to my knees, which is about, like, I want to say, a foot or two. I'm not a very tall person, but it was still very impressive to see. And also, just whenever we do any type of work as well, just going in and doing that work and clearing it and seeing how more beautiful it is open, it's a very rewarding feeling as well when you get to just bring back those sacred places. Oh, so I wanted to highlight on the black oak. So the black oak is very, very good. So this, I will say, it goes straight back to food sovereignty as well. Us indigenous people, when we were falling upon hard times, when we were going through genocide and all that, we knew that if we still had our acorn around, that we were going to survive, because acorn is the first traditional food along with like corns, beans, squash, all that. Um, but acorn is one of the first traditional foods, and it is a survival food as well. Actually, it's a survival food because of how long it can last and the fact that it can sustain us when there's really nothing around. But black oak is also very fire resilient. In fact, it's fire dependent, I would like to say. Black oak absolutely loves fire, like just like other plants, just like the manzanita, just like the madrone, very fire resilient and whatnot. But sometimes depending on the size or depending on the health of the black oak, we'll put a little scratch line around it so that the fire can at least get close to it. Because even if the fire doesn't technically touch the tree, it's still healing it because it's coming up to it and its roots, and it's going to go back into the dirt. But so fire is another way to cultivate acorn. So when we do our burns and we put fire under the trees, we can come back and there will be more acorns than there were the last year. And I've been kind of able to witness this, not ish just yet, because I haven't really been able to visit the sites that have had the black oaks. But from what I've seen, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, the acorns come back almost, I don't want to say 5 times, but I want to say 5 times. So, but they come back more and they come back bigger, and it offers a lot more food. And it also is, like I said, it's a winter survival or just a survival food, as in whole. But acorn is also a very sacred food to us as well, especially the black oak. Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics to talk about as well. I might ramble on this, and that's a really good thing for me. But so fire, fish, and water, and how fire is connected with all of them. So many people don't think that fire and water are connected, but they should never be separate in my mind. In my mind, when we are having these type of talks, I don't think we should ever take out the topics of fire, land, and water. If we talk about fire, we need to talk about land and water. If we talk about land, we need to talk about fire and water, and if we talk about water, of course, all what I said. Um, but they all are, it's almost kind of like a pyramid in a way, they all rely and they're all dependent on each other. And if we take one away, we are very imbalancing the natural process that was already there and the order of things that was already there and how well they've worked. But um yeah, so yeah, fire needs water and water needs fire. Fire clears dense rivers and creeks, opening it up to allow more water and air to flow through. When it rains, the water/snow runoff picks up the nutrients left in the dirt mixed ash and flows into our waterways. These nutrients do the same for our plants as it does our water. It enriches the water's nutrients and oxygen, and this helps our fish take in oxygen. And when we burn near water, we take out all the crowded plants, bringing in bugs for the fish to eat. This also allows for beavers to come in and make their essential dams that help filter our water for better quality and oxygen by slowing the water flow down. So not a lot of people think that fire has anything to do with fish and whatnot, but I like to say that fire actually does have a lot of things to do with fish because like I just like I was saying, fire it clears out the dense little I don't know what to call it. I don't want to call them a little bank, but they're, the little edge of the water near wherever lakes, creeks, rivers, wherever there's water, it can clear out that dense compacted land right there because that also all those invasive species that crawl up straight to the water bank is also draining water from where that water is. So when we take that out, we're actually allowing more water to flow back in there and raise the water level. And this I've actually been able to witness as well too because this is something that we are also think is very important on, and when we get the time and when we're able to, we will cut all the way to where the water is and take it all the way out. Because most of the time near water, you see invasive Himalayan blackberry. And of course, invasive Himalayan blackberry, just very hungry, very thirsty. It wants to take up all the water. So when we do burns and when we burn all of that blackberry away, and then we try to, get it down, get it down to the rhizome, which is not the easiest because it's in the dirt. You can see that the water table rises, and just the same for with the beavers and the beaver dams. There is that huge thing of, oh, beavers are hurting our rivers, they're damming our water and blah blah blah, but then we put in a concrete dam. So but beaver dams actually are essential to our waterways, just like I said, they filter out our water for better quality. So when beavers make their dam, the specific ways that they make it, I wish I'm gotta educate myself more about this topic because I'm just I love it. I love this topic. But when beavers make their dams, they make it a certain way and they pack stuff in between the sticks or the logs so that when the water flows through it, that it filters out all the stuff and the gunk in the water, so that's how we have the clear and clean waterways. But it also allows for more oxygen and more aeration in the water, and fish need oxygen in the water to be able to survive and all of that. um and what else was there going to touch up on? Oh, so when we burn near water, the smoke or whatever, when it goes up and it shades the water, it can bring the water temperature down. And I don't know for how long, so I'm not going to say that cuz but yeah, so when you burn near water and the smoke rises, it kind of helps cool the water temperatures down, which also does help the fish too, essentially. But same with the when you mix the ash and the dirt and the water and snow runoff, go all the way down and mix into the ash, it's just mix into the water. It's essentially really good for salmon or fish and like their skin and whatnot. Just like how it's very good for our plants as well, like I was saying before. But yeah, so it's essential for our waterways, I would like to say as well. So animals and burning and how they know. So this is also another topic I like to talk about because there's so many things in fire that just go into it, that there's so many things to just talk about. I don't even know where to start. So I try to bring everything into it because cultural fire is not just one set thing of laying fire on the ground. It's all the effects before and after. But so animals are burning and how they know. So animals already have a special relationship with fire. When we burn, hawks know to look out at the edge because they can catch whatever prey is fleeing. Deer know when they see the burn marks in the ash that there will be leftover plants to eat, and if they roll in the warm ash, they can get ticks off them. When there's a burn as well, if we can provide a habit, when there's a burn as well, it can provide a habitat for the birds. Usually, when there is a fire, animals know they can hunt during these times because a lot of prey will be essentially fleeing. But fire also opens up the landscapes for animals to easily escape or migrate to a new place. And this is another slide that I wish I had given a little bit more attention to, but I wanted to make sure that I had all my ends tied in on the other slide. But so the relationship that animals have with cultural burning is very unique to itself as well. It's very special in a way, and that's something that I don't really know how to put into words. But there have been many, many times where, after a burn, it's like the day after or like the week after, me and my crew come back to do mop up, and we will normally always spot a deer or a deer family. And it's very cute because they just know that all the little charred bits, I don't know exactly what to say, but all this little stuff that's been burned and that's left over, they know if they can come back and they can eat that as well. Like they'll eat some stuff down to the rhizomes, which is nice, especially if it's for invasive plants. Also, such like invasive Himalayan blackberry, because if you have invasive Himalayan blackberry and then you burn it, but the rhizome is still there, it's just gonna come back and it's gonna you can mitigate blackberry with fire, but it's more so you should try to get the rhizomes out because that's the main problem of it. But um essentially, just whenever animals see a fire, they normally don't think danger. They just think like my next meal, like, oh, easy meal. Yeah. So that's just something that's really beautiful as well. And then like anytime we burn as well, there's always hawks flying above us and you can just hear them like screeching, or you can hear all the other vultures and the crows and all that. And it just essentially becomes very alive even before and after. Me and my crew, there's this one little farm that we would burn on, and it was like whenever we would burn on it, the bear would just leave a little scat present for us right in the middle of either the burn mark or the trail, as to either just be all like telling us to leave or telling us like thanks for doing this for me. But yeah, bears too as well. They know, and I can't remember exactly their important like what they but all animals, if you can get what I'm saying, all animals know that. And it's just a really very, very special thing. And I'm trying to make this as long as I can because I'm pretty sure this is the end of my presentation. Yes, it is. Okay. So Wenham or Wene and Wenham, which means thank you and go well.
Thank you so much. You hear everyone, which now the volume's on. So let's give her one more round of applause in case she Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your experience with us. We do have some questions and QAs. We're gonna take some first from our folks on the call, and then folks, any hands that come up raised. We really enjoyed what you had to say, Sadie, and share. But let me
Yay.
open and see our Q&A.
Not seeing any questions in the chat yet.
Not yet. Okay, well, you guys can go ahead and
Don't be
sit down,
afraid.
but folks in the audience, does anyone want to start us off with any questions? I see Michelle Stevens, Dr. Stevens. Would you like to come up and ask your question? We're going to ask that anyone just come up here and then we can. Dr. Stevens. Oh, I don't want to get the cords. Okay.
Do I stand here?
Yeah.
Hi, Sadie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's so good
Good to see you. Hey, I'd like to get you and the Flicker crew out to Bushy Lake with Diana to burn out there. So I hope you can come out in the spring. We really need a fire.
Absolutely. We would love to be there.
Thank you for your talk.
Thank you for coming up. You're amazing. Oh, just love her.
While others are thinking of questions, Sadie, I was loving your slides when you're talking about the span of how quickly the effects come from just burning within a couple weeks to months. What are some things that you've observed in your crews, like how quickly that cycle happens, like when you're in an area with like invasive blackberries or just other areas that clear out? Like what are some of those time frames that you see those changes after a burn?
Yeah, so normally the time, like if I had to put it in like a time frame ish and whatnot, so let's say like you know, one day you put the fire down, and then normally it's the next day you come and you do the mop up, or within that week you come and you do the mop up, which is mixing the dirt and the ash. And specifically how you mix the dirt and the ash is you just pour a lot of water onto it and then you mix it in the ash. But so for us, like I say, normally we don't come out. We don't really get to actually come back and visit our sites, unfortunately. Like there's actually a site that I've really, really been wanting to see, but I haven't been able to see it for almost a year now. So I unfortunately don't know how the progress of that looks. But normally for me, with it, when it's basket material, it grows about within 1 to 3 months, like a foot or two, which is really nice because then by that time, like it's already pretty well to be harvested. For me, it's like that specific basket material I saw was rush, which is another type of tule reed.
For the tule reeds.
Tule reeds and grasses, they take a long time. Unfortunately, same with not a long time. They take a very amount of short time. Unfortunately, it's the same thing with Himalayan blackberry, even though it's invasive, like will burn and I can come back and I can like within 3 months and whatnot, and I'll see the all the natural material and the native species, but then you'll still see them like growing back and it's all green and you're like, dang it.
We do have a few questions online, and I think that I can actually unmute people to ask their questions if you're on Zoom. I see Carol Maxwell. I'm going to allow you to talk.
Yay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Sadie, thank you so much for that presentation. It was awesome. I just actually had I just asked what mop up was, which I'm glad you just answered that question. I just had a couple other ones in terms of like, how do you prep? So it was interesting for me to hear when you were talking that you go in and that you actually, it sounded like you do invasive removal and like pull out plants beforehand and then burn. And I was just wondering kind of like what kind of site prep do you guys do or do you do before you're burning? And then the other question I had was I'm sure this is like relative to each site you go to, but how often do you feel like you have to go back for burning? Like, are you and like, do you have any information that you could share on that? I know it's a pretty ambiguous question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But those are really great questions, actually. And I love those questions. So thank you so much. But yeah, no, of course. So site prep, normally what that looks like for us at least is cutting and clearing and pile burning. So a lot of people when they hear cutting and clearing, you know, they're like, because it's just like that logging version of cut everything down. And that's not actually it. So for us, our version of cutting and clearing, you know, is we go and we visit, we look out and we go and we look out at the site and we see, you know, what needs to be taken back or what type of species there, what invasive species are there. Normally my crew boss has a really good history of what the site already is, so he can be all like, this is originally a wetland, or this is originally like a very nice open oakland, or this is like a very nice grassland, or this used to be a meadow. So we'll go in and we'll cut out all the invasive trees, the invasive bushes. Sometimes we will sometimes there are a few like things that we'll have to get down and put it out by hand, but we have a lot of tools that such as like they look like really really big fancy rakes is the best way I could say it. Like they've got the really long wooden stick and this big metal head on it. But my favorite is called the T tool, and it literally is just like shaped like a not a T essentially, but it's got like a scraper and then a rake on one side and like a pickaxe on the other. And it's just really cool. So I'll go in and I'll kind of just like mold it up and whatnot and then throw it on there. But so we will cut it all into movable pieces, especially when we take out trees. We'll cut it into like sizable enough logs to where we can put it into a pile in an open clearing so that when we come back to burn it, we're burning it and making sure that the smoke mitigation is obviously minimal so that we're not smoking anybody out or there's no like people don't think there's an actual fire going on or anything like that. And then we'll like I said, like the next day or within the week we'll come to do mop up. And how often I think people should be back to like normally come and check and tend on sites. For me, I would say probably like 3 months, because that is normally when like every 3 months is that's really when like progress and kind of like nurturing it is going to see. It's not really like you're not really like going back and like kind of like tidying it up and whatnot. You're going back and kind of just observing it and making like little data marks or writing something down in your notebook, being like, okay, like the next 3 months it grew this much, or it did this, and this is what happened, or this is the water table level now.
Uh,
And then Carol, did you have a second question on there?
no, but I did want to, I did know I'm still unmuted, but I just also wanted to follow up with like, how often do you go back and burn? Like if you go back and like observe, etc., but like in terms of like, are you burning sites just once and then usually laying them to rest for like 2 years? Or like, is there any kind of guidance on that?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. So normally whenever a site is burned, it is like once every year. Because it doesn't really need too much fire, and you don't really want to essentially like accidentally cook the stuff that's there by adding more heat and whatnot. Because also when we do our pile burns, we have it specifically to be a specific shape. We say little teepee shape because that's just what it is, but we have it be a certain shape and a certain height and a certain size so that we don't cook the soil, so that there's no more nutrients there. But normally it's just once a year, every site that we go to. But sometimes it can be like, depending on how big the site is, we will split it up into multiple areas. So we'll be burning one huge site like continuously throughout the year, but different spots every single time.
Super interesting. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for explaining that. I think we have another question from Katie Long. And go ahead, Katie. We'll keep these questions coming. A lot of good material.
Yay!
Yes, Sadie.
It's
Hi,
so nice to
I'm so happy to
see
see you.
I'm so happy to see you. I wish I could have been there. I'm so sad.
Oh, next time.
Next time.
So I promise I do have questions, but I first just have to just really express to you how moved I am by your presentation. This is one of the best presentations I've seen in a long time, if I'm being really honest. The way, like, and sort of how my neuro expansive brain works, if it'd be okay, I'd love to just reflect back some of the moments that really touched me about what you shared.
Absolutely.
Great. And then that way you can also correct me if I'm misunderstanding anything. Well, first of all, the way that you kind of retitled the presentation with "Good Fire" at the beginning and explained why you did that was really beautiful. And just the way that you are sharing from the heart as well as from the mind, and like from, like it just your demeanor, your friendliness, your openness, and your like deep, skillful knowledgeability is like really amazing. Also including that beautiful story about hummingbird and coyote and like Origin of Fire, so amazing. Talking about the historical, context of settler colonialism and outlawing fire in 1850, the same year that California became a state. And like, that's heavy, like genocide and settler colonialism is like really, really heavy, but you included it so gracefully. I did not know about this triangle of like fire, water, and land. I'm going to remember that forever.
Yay! Yes!
Beautifully explained. And I also just felt so moved and emotional hearing. It's kind of my first time really hearing that animals appreciate good fire, like appreciate and benefit from this, because in my lifetime as a settler, from enslaved African as well as European ancestry, I've only really seen animals like caught up in these mega wildfires that are so traumatizing and deadly and dangerous. And so it's like really blowing my mind and heart right now to just be like, deer like to roll in the warm ashes. Like,
yes,
what?
they do.
So, and then the fish benefit and the hawks and just everything that you shared, as well as your love for the different plants that you showed us as images. So I could go on, and I see other people have questions too. So I don't want to like take up all the time, but
Yes,
just,
of
like,
course.
from my heart, really thank you. And you're so gifted as a teacher. And I feel so grateful and privileged to be learning from you.
Thank you. Your words mean so much to me. Honestly, I could cry right now.
Well, my question for you is, do you have a vision or a dream or a wish for kind of 7 generations in the future of like what fire looks like on these lands? Are there collaborations, maybe like abolitionist visions of like Native folks teaching formerly incarcerated firefighters how to do these
Yeah.
fire burns and collaborating? I know that they're in NorCal here. There is some like work with migrant workers and farm workers who've been hyper exploited in the wine grape industry, who are now doing like moving more towards land mitigation, land stewardship, and kind of learning cultural burning from Native folks. So, but just personally for you, like what would be some of your dreams for the next 7 generations around fire, land, and water?
Oh gosh, my dream. I mean, this is like my number one big dream. And not to sound like such a downer when I say this, this is one of the ones that I feel like, and a lot of people think is kind of going to be not really the most attainable, not really the most achievable. But my number one big dream is to see all of our forests and all of our lands back to that native ecosystem that they're supposed to and rightfully be at. Because, they've been so badly mistreated, with especially with all just everything that's been going on, this construction, development, housing, and just damming our rivers and all that, stealing the water, making us pay for water, making us just pay to live in general is honestly, I think, is a really heinous act for me because years and years and years ago, we never did that. Our payment for living was just waking up and breathing and experiencing all the beautiful around us. But for me, my actual, like, if I could say real goal and whatnot, it would be I want to see natives run the world. I know, and I think that is 100% achievable. Next native president, we need a native president, and I don't know who it's gonna be, but somebody.
Yes,
I think we
gorgeous.
need to dismantle our whole governmental system. I think we need to start fresh, and I think we need to put Indigenous people at the forefront, and they need to be on the front lines, and they need to be listened to and heard the most. Because even when we are having these talks right now, Native people aren't at the table most of the time. And even when we are trying to be there, and when we are there, it's more so like they already have their own agenda and they're already all like, yeah, you're here and we want to hear from you and whatnot. But like, you're kind of just like the little opinion or like the sticky note that keeps falling off, like whatever. But we want to be there and be like, no, like this is the way. And if you don't listen to us, there is no future. There is no next 7 generations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. I love that
you.
dream. Thank you so much.
Thank
Much love
you
to
so
you.
much. Yes, much love to you. I was seeing some questions in the chat that I didn't want to skip over, so I don't know if we should look at some of those or if we just want to continue with.
Yeah, let's go to Marcus first. Thank you so much, Sadie. And thank you, Katie. Awesome. I really appreciate these questions. I'm trying to this question. Are you there we go. Right there. Okay, go ahead, Marcus. You can ask your question.
Oh, can you
Oh,
guys
this is
hear
my
me?
brother.
Yeah, I am Sadie's brother. We're actually twins, by the way, so that makes it even cooler. Well, I have a simple question for you, sis. I just wanted to ask you, through these last few years of working on the land with us, how much do you love it? How much of a life-changing experience has it been? And are you happy about all the pestering that I did to get you on the crew?
Yes. So I love to answer this question, and I always love to talk about this. And I feel like this is the question that I will always answer and never get tired of too. But so this is something that I always include whether I'm on like a panel or introducing myself and not caught up in trying to show off a presentation. I love to just go off about how um I was 18 and I had worked for 6 months in food service and I was so tired of it and I was done and I was just ready to go do something. And I said, hey, why not go work in the forest? That sounds so much better than serving these rude people their milkshakes and all that. So, but also it's just a little sad topic to touch on, but I also just include it in any time I talk about it. Unfortunately, our family had a cousin who was very, very close to us pass away. And before I decided to do this, my brother, my twin, Marcus, had been doing it for a year longer than I had, and he like every single day he came back, he would be all like, "Can I just tell you about my work day? Can I just tell you like doing this and can I tell like," and I would just be like, "Yeah, of course." Like of course I wouldn't say no. I had nothing else to do and I didn't want to, you know. I was like, this sounds way better than what I was used to be doing. But so he would just tell me about everything and like what was going on and what he was doing and how he thought it was amazing. And I even honestly saw a change in my brother too, He just was very more, I don't know how to put it, open, I guess I could say. He was just very more willing to talk in front of people and just so I could just tell the spiritual impact of it. And I just started to feel it in myself too. I was like, I have to be out there. There was just something in there that, anytime I saw myself in something for forever, it was out there doing what, he was doing and what he was telling me about. And so one day I was with my cousin. I think it might have been like Easter or something like that, or maybe after that, but I was with my cousin Cody and I was talking to him and I said, cousin, this is something that I've really been thinking about. And it's really cool and I really want to do it. And he had I think he talked to my crew boss like once or twice before I joined. But I think either by then he had an internship with our tribe. So I was able to start this because at first my tribe put it on. They put on the classes to be able to go do that. So um he was just talking about how he already thought our crew boss was so amazing and he thought this was something beautiful. And, he just was all like, you got to do it. This is something that you have to do. This is important. And unfortunately, right when I was about to start, is when the couple months before then is when he passed away. So it really solidified for me and then that I was like, this is something that I have to do. It's my destiny and I could feel it. And once I just stepped out on that land for the first time, even if I made mistakes and even if I was a first timer and whatnot, I was just like, I wanted to be out there. There was no other place that I wanted to be out of. You guys got to realize I was scared of bees and wasps. I did not like them flying around me. They would fly like around my face and I would just be like, I was not the person I did not like them in my vicinity or in my space and whatnot. And there was even a day where, like, one of my first weeks out at work, where, like, one wouldn't leave me alone, and I was just trying to eat my freaking sandwich, and I was so
Yep.
mad. And I was so mad, but I had to get over it because my crew boss was all like, well, wasps are native. Worst day of my life. But yeah, he was just telling me, he just explained to me the importance of, like, yeah, there could be millions, but you can't take out the one because that's affecting the balance. It is affecting the balance whether or not you think it is. Whether you think that you picking up that old can that we found during work or trash doesn't do anything, it did do something. Whether, it's not on a big scale to you, you forever changed that spot that you were at. And that just really stuck to me. And especially just with how smart my crew boss is, he will forever be one of my mentors and one of my teachers, and I will never stop learning from him, and I will never stop asking him questions. And yeah, like I don't know exactly how too much to put it into words, but it was something very spiritually healing and spiritually touching. It's like I always tell people every time I go out there on the land, I can feel my ancestors there with me practically. I can feel them walking with me, and I can almost hear them being all like, "No, don't do that to that plant. Take that one out," you know? So it's just nice because I get to remind myself, like, years ago, this is exactly what they were doing, and even if I am now in Nomex and they were in Buckskin, you know, I'm still doing what they were doing, and I'm continuing on that tradition, and it just felt something very very me, very like, it felt like my soul was balanced, you know, because I kept telling myself that if the one thing that I wanted to do forever, that even if it was a job, it wasn't going to be a job, was to serve my community and give back to my community and just give to my people and ensure just sovereignty and rights and survival for them. And I really saw it with this because it just made the most sense.
That's that's fire right there.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sadie. And
Thank
you have
you.
additional questions? Hayden's coming up right now.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Hayden.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, I wanted to ask you more about the burn permitting process, because you mentioned that it is very difficult working with state and local agencies to get that. I was just wondering more about like, first of all, what does the process look like? And also like, how long does it usually take to go from deciding to burn an area to actually getting the permits and doing the burn?
Okay, yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I feel like that's something I can halfway answer because unfortunately I haven't been able to be a part of or fully see the administrative part of it. But if my brother wanted to jump in again and kind of give a little bit of an answer because I feel like he kind of understands a little bit more too, but more so let's kind of like the process to it, you know, is you have to go out and you have to visit the site, you have to map all the species that are in the site, you have to map how big it is, and then you have to create your plan. You have to be like, okay, so is this all oak wood or is it also pine? So if so, how many pine are there and how many pine need to be taken out? If there's what, and then what shrubs or what grasses are under those trees? What type are they? Um, and like the hardiness of them and blah 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 and whatnot. So then you have to create this whole plan, and then you have to essentially kind of already see and do the burn in your mind before it's there. So then you have to be all like, okay, so when I lay down fire in here, like how smoky is it going to get? Where should I do this? Because then you have to create the smoke mitigation plan and all that. It's a whole bunch of like tying your ends in and getting all the steps in so that they can't ask any questions and poke holes in it. It's just when you hand it in to them, they're like, all right, well, you know, you've got everything. And for me, when it was with my crew boss, it was normally pretty quick. I would say it would either be a couple weeks to a month of when he would say, I would maybe sometimes a couple of months, because sometimes if it was like a certain spot and we were already burning an area, he'd be like, we gotta wait for that one, so I already sent the stuff in and blah blah blah. But it wasn't be too long from when he would tell us like we're going to burn, and then like within that couple weeks or so months we are burning. Um, but actually, if my brother would like to come back and say something, because he remembers a lot of the permitting stuff more than I do, because I bore, yawn, you know, makes me
I can unmute Marcus.
Yeah, I'm still
okay, cool.
here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, like she said, before we even begin the process, we do a pretty thorough like check over of our plot, what kind of plants are there, which is what we describe them as different fuel types. So it's if it's mostly leaf litter, mostly brush, mostly trees, yada yada, grass, stuff like that. But as far as the permitting process goes, when you're applying for your permit, it's you're either applying for a burn pile permit or a broadcasting permit. And when you're applying for those permits, it's for however much acres you plan on treating throughout, let's say, 5 years. So, for example, on our permit, we had 103 plus acres that we were permitted for with our broadcast permit and our pile permit. And I'm trying to remember. I've never written the permits. I've just tried to pick up on it because I know one day I'm going to do it. It's not the funnest thing. I enjoy the grunt work, but it's a matter of, saying, sorry, yeah, maybe I'm not the best at this. Um, but you have to have an allotted like plot that you say, hey, we want to burn this. This is our fuel types. This is what we're going to do. This is where our fire lines are going to be. This is our contingency plan, our smoke management plan, and these are different types of paperwork that you have to, write through and apply for with air quality, with CAL FIRE, your local counties and whatnot. And this is a pretty extensive process. It could be like weeks to months, especially with higher agencies like CAL FIRE, pretty much just because of their scheduling. But you do need everything allotted out before you have the burn plan. And burning, we usually a smaller size in our main plot. So we'll do 6 acres out of like the 103 acres. And then we say, hey, we're burning this for the day. And typically it's, I don't know, it's just enough. Oh my goodness. So our permit is only for 10 acres. We usually only burn like 5 to 6 acres. We've never gone up to that. So our plotted acres are always just in the right, like bandwidth, I guess you could say. So it's really just like a means of liability, saying like, hey, we're gonna do this. This is our plan. If it goes haywire, not haywire, but this is our control plan. This is what we do if this happens, and this is how we're gonna mop it up. But it's just a lot of paperwork, really, that I haven't had the time to really experience yet. I've just picked up bits and pieces from our higher ups and our our burn boss talking about it. But it is something that I am personally interested in learning to benefit our crew, and it ultimately is just something that I'm going to have to learn. But I hope that's answered your question, and I'm really sorry for my misinformation, but I hope that's it.
No, it's okay. Thank you for answering that. I was just wondering because I imagine, especially with the state of fires in California, it is becoming a really lengthy process to figure all that out. But thank you for answering.
Yeah. See, he explained it better than I did, even if he didn't think he did.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
If there are any additional questions coming up here. Let's see. We have, oh, that's Marcus. I thought I saw one pop in here.
I know there are some questions, I think, in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. I think they might be
Answered.
more up towards the top.
You see, okay, yeah. Let's see, I'm going back up. Here we go. I just saw one, I'm scrolling too fast. Chris asked, what is the procedure for laying fire?
So it's normally different depending on sometimes the density of the site. Like if it's a meadow, we'll just do like straight continuous lines. Whereas like if it's more dense and whatnot, we'll kind of like if it's dense, we won't go around it. We will straight up walk through it. Like I remember one time my crew boss was having me lay fire through all these bushes and like right as I reached the bushes, I'm pretty sure this was like one of my first few months or whatever. Right as I reached the bushes, he was all like, "All right, no, just keep going in there." And I like stopped and I was like, "Through the bushes?" And he was like, "Yep, go ahead." But normally whenever we have to go through bushes like that, that's when we'll do a firing X pattern, which means like we literally just fire straight in an X and we just keep going, and that's how we do it. We fire in an X so that we can kind of get as much cover as we need. Or if there's like a lot of leaf litter on the ground as well, we'll do the firing in an X just to lay more fire, but also kind of be a little bit more fuel efficient. So we're still covering a good amount, but we're not wasting fuel. And sometimes if depending on how big the plot is, we'll have the 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3 fire stripping, which is one person walks first for 5 feet, then the second person who's 5 feet or 10 feet below them walks, then also lights a line and then fires a strip as well, walks for 5 feet, and the person who is again same distance away from that person, then lights a strip and continues and follows all the people. Sometimes it's just like a straight thing, sometimes it's like you're curving through and whatnot. But the 1, 2 and the 1, 2, 3 is to also again to cover more bases. So it's you put a line of fire near the edge so that you're creating the black area so that nothing will jump over the line, and then all the other 2 people behind you are the ones who are actually hitting the vegetation in there and getting the rest of the other stuff that didn't burn. So essentially the lines back burn into each other.
And just to follow up on that, what's the importance of leaving that leaf litter or not when you are going on that back burn?
So when burning off the leaf litter, actually, it's because it's highly flammable and whatnot. When we to cover our base, we'll get it by the border or whatnot, or we'll just make sure. But when we make sure to get the leaf litter because it's really good. It's really easy to have an ember or a spark fly and then it fly across your line and land into either the leaf litter right next to it, either on the line or on the other side of the line, and then it catches fire and it creeps up to the other site that you either didn't prepare or weren't trying to burn, and then it gets into there. But when you burn close up to the line, if there's sparks or embers that fall and they fall on near the line, because most of the time the scratch line is just kind of like how do I explain it? The scratch line is supposed to be the width, or your hand line. Your hand line is supposed to be the width of however you think the flames are going to be, so that, you're not going to be burning anything that you don't want to be burning. But so just making sure that we get that leaf litter and that duff is to just also, again, to cover our stuff and make sure we're not accidentally lighting unintentional fires, but also for when we do mop up and whatnot, the leaf litter won't stop any new plants from coming back and growing, because leaf litter actually can be so dense it can stop or hinder something from growing, because it'll be hard to penetrate to get through.
That's really helpful. Thank you for explaining that.
Of course.
I know Chris would appreciate that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Hi, I'm Malcolm. Just wanted to say thank you for that presentation. And then I guess for my question, there's first off, I wanted to hear a little bit more about Flickr, but then also the bigger question was just if you wanted to share a specific experience you had on a burn, what was it like? What were the flame heights? What were you burning? What was the overstory, what was the crew up to, that sort of thing. I'd love to hear just a specific story about one specific time in a fire. It would be really cool.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love that question too. I would definitely love to say that. So, specifically Flickr, at the beginning, Letitia amazingly recited. Flickr stands for Fire. I already forgot it. Fire Leadership for Indigenous Cultural Knowledge and Eco Revitalization. It's a long spitball. But in short, it stands for Flickr Crew, and it's just specific to kind of what me and my crew do, because it's not just cultural prescribed burning, it's also land restoration that we do, because we're going in and we're prepping the land before the burn so that we can, again, open it up and whatnot, because just opening up the land already does so much for it, and just taking care of it already does so much for it. But then putting fire on the ground is a lot as well. But we specifically I don't want to say specify in, but we really try to keep with eco revitalization, mainly that we're not just a normal fuel and hand crew. We want to restore our lands and get them back to that park-like setting like they used to be. And we want to have these gathering and tending sites like they always do, because there used to be generational gathering and tending sites actually, but because of overgrowth and all that, and also sites just being destroyed because of wildfires, there's not many like that. So we are trying to ensure that we have places to continue to practice our culture as well. But we also will do, like, we've done contracts with other people before, like Cal Fire and Tahoe Forest Service, on just cultural sites that they wanted us to tend to. But it's specifically, like when we work for somebody, it's got to be like a village site or a cultural site, something to it. But if they contract us out for anything, we'll come out there. But specifically, it's got to be about something that, needs the tending and needs the saving. And gosh, there are so many good stories to say about what I like, my experience and what I've experienced out on a burn before. But one I will say that was really, really cool. This has happened a couple of times, but we were having this one really good, cool, nice burn up on this really nice hill and slope. I can't remember if it was like the eastern western side of where it is. I can't disclose the location, but I'm pretty sure me by saying that my crew will know what I'm talking about. But so we all had we had other people come and help us too from my tribe, we had my tribe's lands crew come and help us with the burn as well, because it was kind of a large pile burn. But yeah, we were doing pile burning that day, and we were burning a whole bunch of piles. We were letting a whole bunch of piles off, and I forgot what it was. I think it was like stew. Somebody cooked stew and steak on the fire for lunch, so that was really cool. One person had like a little bit of a break to go cook lunch, and then like one by one in groups, we all kind of like took our break to go have lunch, and it was good, honestly. Um Yes, that was the Western Hillside. Thank you. I actually, you guys are gonna laugh at me. I think that was actually when I was plant-based, so I wasn't eating meat, but that was a really cool experience. But now that I'll just say this, I'll actually tell this story. So I started eating meat again on the fire line, actually. So I think it was a couple months after that burn, maybe like a month or two or whatnot. I had already been thinking about reverting back to eating meat, because I wanted to primarily stick to a plant-based diet. I just liked the gist of it, I guess you could say. Um, but I knew, because of my work and because of the high intensity and whatnot, that I needed something that was meat protein, because as many plants as we have that are nutrients, none of them make up for the protein that are in meats. The protein in meat is specific to what it is. And so I had just been talking to my crew members. We're all around the fire. Somebody brought chicken and steak fajitas, and they were making that, and it was smelling so good. I'm not gonna lie. It smelled so good. And I was like, I'm such a traitor. um but yeah, so I was just talking to them, and I had been talking about it for a while, and I even talked about it with my crew boss and his partner. She's a nutritionist, and I was talking about, just like, I was like, I think I gotta start eating meat again. It hasn't really been hitting me, but I know at one point my stamina is going to be affected. And wildland firefighters or crews like us, sorry if you hear anything, my cat is having the zoomies right now. She's very happy right now. But so firefighters or wildland firefighters normally have to eat 10 times more than the average person does. We have to eat a lot. So we have to get a lot of the protein, a lot of the fiber, a lot of the carbs, because we're burning up to 3,000 calories a day. So it's a lot. We can burn even more than that a day. But you kind of got to expect that when you're standing next to a fire and it's burning like 800 degrees in your face. So, um, but so yeah, well, I think it was my twin brother, had cooked up chicken and steak fajitas that day, and I was just talking to them, and I was like, you guys, I think one day I have to, and they all were just like, now's your start, today. And my brother made me a little chicken fajita, and I just like sat there, I think, for like a couple minutes, like staring at it, being like, do I do this? But spoiler alert, I did, and I liked it. It was good. Yeah, so that was the day I started eating meat again because I was out on the fire line and I just couldn't help it. And also I knew I needed to.
Wow, Sadie, I think you're inspiring a lot of folks probably on this call about, how they can get into the work you do. Follow up with what's the best way just to like, if folks have additional questions. I think you're sharing a whole lot and I think there's going to be way more questions. I mean, even after this, I think you're probably going to unearth some follow-up questions. Maybe you want to drop it in the chat if that makes sense. I think we do have time for one additional question and I'm trying to look and see before we get kicked out of the room for the end of ours, but this has been so awesome. Let me see what last question we have. I'm scrolling. I do see Carol's hand up. I think that might be Carol, you might be taking it away as our last question of the night. I do not see an additional.
She just put her hand down. I think she
Yeah,
might have been a...
Yeah, no, give it to somebody else. I already have my turn.
Let's see.
There was a question about
I see one in there. What was that?
Oh, there's a question about how frequently would you burn under black oaks?
Oh, great, thanks.
Oh yes, I've seen that. So normally I'm pretty sure I would probably say it's around the same thing of like once a year we would burn under the black oaks. Because even though they're pretty fire resilient, you don't want to put too much fire and too much heat on them because you don't want to cook the roots, or you don't want to accidentally like send fire down into the roots and have like an internal fire going, which is not really possible unless the whole tree and the inside of the tree is on fire. But yeah, I would say I feel like I've heard like maybe like 1 to 2 times a year, but normally for me, I've only burned under like, and I've never burned under the same black oak just yet, but most of the time it's like once a year or so.
Oh, and I found another one. Oh, this one's interesting.
Yay.
Sean O'Brien said, awesome talk. It seems like almost every native plant benefits from fire. Are there actually any native species that don't benefit from fire?
Ooh, okay, that is a good question. And also, I need to shout out Sean O'Brien from Placer Land Trust. No, not Placer Land Trust, Dry Creek Conservancy. Sean, I'm so sorry. Dry Creek Conservancy, you guys. Sean is there, and he's amazing. Dry Creek Conservancy does also a lot of land restoration and giving back, and mostly salmon habitat and whatnot. They're amazing, you guys. Go check them out. Also, because I got mixed up, Placer Land Trust is also really cool as well. So, I'm so sorry, Sean. But so far from what I've heard, there really isn't any plant that I can think of off the top of my head that doesn't benefit from fire. From what I know, a lot of them kind of essentially germinate from fire. And that's how you kind of just get those really nice beefed up plants, in a way to put it like that. But that's like most of the time for me, I've really just seen a native plant really just take off from fire. That's really how it can like differentiate invasive species to native species for me. Because like even if I'm not too sure a species is native, if we light off a burn and we come back, you can tell by how little one plant has come back and how more the other plant has come back. Normally, native species have a very well receptive like growth pattern, I guess you could say, to fire. But I don't know. I think I can't really think of anything not even aquatic plants. Yeah, I don't want to say like actually aquatic plants, like plants that are probably on riverbanks and whatnot. They really benefit from fire as well. But specifically, I would like to say medicine plants benefit from fire a lot.
All the good medicine.
Oh, you rock, Sean. You're being so nice.
Well, thank you so much, Sadie. We really appreciate it. We're just gonna turn the screen around and so that you can see the folks that are here and they can wave and say thank you because we really appreciated you here. And
Yay!
it's almost as if you're with us, but can you, I don't know. Oh wait, am I holding it up? Sorry guys.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for
Yeah,
listening
so
to me.
thank you so much, and we just appreciate you. And then in our last few moments, we do have a couple chapter updates. I think Leslie's gonna close us out, but before Leslie does, we have a couple announcements. Yeah.